In November 1558, the cold corridors of St. James's Palace were filled with a stench that incense could not disguise. Behind closed doors, courtiers whispered about the Queen who could scarcely be recognized as human. Mary Tudor, daughter of Henry VIII, once the most powerful woman in England, was dying in a way that even her enemies found horrifying. Her skin was blackened as if charred, her body grotesquely swollen, and the Queen's chamber had become a place where death arrived piece by piece, day by day. This was not the dignified passing of a Renaissance monarch. This was decay in life, a queen rotting before the eyes of her court. The physicians of the time, powerless against the cancer gnawing within, could do nothing but witness their sovereign dissolve into a scene both tragic and grotesque. To the world, she was Bloody Mary, who had ordered nearly 300 Protestants burned alive. But in her final weeks, it was Mary herself who was being burned from within, consumed by disease, delusion, and a terror that prayer could not ease. This story is not only the tragedy of a failed reign, it is a chilling reminder of the brutality of death in Tudor times, where power, faith, and flesh were all ground down by time into a darkness that stank of rot. To understand the horrifying, decaying death of Mary I, we must return to the beginning, a childhood that seemed golden but was cruelly broken. Mary Tudor was born in 1516, the only surviving daughter of Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon. In her early years, she was called the Pearl of England, an intelligent, healthy child, raised in the splendor of the Tudor court. Mary spoke several languages, played music, sang, and was prepared for a future as a princess who might marry a powerful monarch of Europe. But her world collapsed when Henry VIII, obsessed with securing a male heir, decided to annul his marriage to Catherine in order to wed Anne Boleyn. This decision not only shattered the family but also destroyed Mary's own life. In a single night, the princess was cast down from heir to the throne to an outcast, declared by her father to be a bastard. Her royal title was stripped away, and Mary was forced to serve her own half-sister Elizabeth, the infant daughter of Anne Boleyn. For Mary, this was not only humiliation, but a psychological blow that scarred her for life. Henry VIII's cruelty did not end there. He forbade Mary from seeing her mother, Catherine, who was banished to remote castles until her lonely and desperate death. Mary, then only a young girl, lived under strict surveillance, threatened by her father's spies with cold warnings if she did not submit. She might lose her head. Years of isolation completely altered Mary's nature. From a lively child, she became a suspicious, withdrawn young woman, haunted by the fear of betrayal. Only her devotion to Roman Catholicism, the faith of her mother, gave her spiritual comfort. In these dark years, the seeds of religious fanaticism took root in Mary's soul. When Henry VIII broke with the Pope and founded the Church of England, forcing his subjects to abandon Catholicism, Mary regarded it as the ultimate insult. Compelled to attend Protestant services, she considered heretical. She felt her soul defiled each time. The struggle between faith and political power planted in her a conviction only absolute loyalty to Catholicism could save both herself and the kingdom. In 1544, Henry was finally forced to recognize Mary as his legitimate heir. But by then, the bright princess had transformed into a bitter, distrustful woman, ready to wield power as a weapon of vengeance. These psychological wounds defined Mary's entire reign. When she ascended the throne in 1553, after the death of Edward VI and the brief usurpation of Lady Jane Grey, Mary was no longer the proud princess of old. She was a 37-year-old woman, alone, consumed by the obsession to restore Catholicism at any cost. Her dream of bearing a Catholic heir to secure the throne drove her into the torment of phantom pregnancies. The first time, her belly swelled. She vomited like an expectant mother. The court prepared a cradle, vet nurses, even a baptism ceremony, but no child ever appeared. Later medicine would suggest it was the sign of ovarian or uterine tumors, the very illness that would kill her. When her dream of succession collapsed, Mary sank deeper into fanaticism. She believed God was punishing England for heresy, and that only fire could cleanse the souls of her people. Hundreds were sent to the stake, from nameless peasants to great religious leaders, such as Archbishop Thomas Cranmer. To Mary, it was an act of divine mercy. To the people, it was hell itself in the heart of London. In 1557, only a few years after taking the throne, Mary's body began to betray her. At first, it was only persistent stomach pains, endless sleepless nights, and then her belly swelling as if she were once again pregnant. The court buzzed. Whispers spread of hope for a Catholic heir. But, as before, no child was ever born. Instead, Mary's body grew ever more deformed, more horrifying with each passing day. The Tudor physicians, bound to the theory of the four humours, were utterly powerless. They misdiagnosed her, then resorted to primitive treatments, bloodletting, herbal brews, purges. All of it only weakened the Queen further. The true illness, according to modern medicine, was likely ovarian cancer or liver cancer, compounded by severe liver failure. But in the 16th century, such tumours were an irreversible death sentence. Mary's skin began to yellow from jaundice, then darkened to black as though burned. Her fingers shrivel, her nails peeled away to reveal ulcerated flesh beneath. Her entire body reeked of death so strongly that incense, resins, and the finest perfumes could not mask it. Even her closest attendants had to take turns serving her, for no one could endure the stench that seeped from the Queen's chamber. In those final nights, St. James's Palace was no longer a place of power and majesty, but a living dungeon. Mary's moans and screams of agony echoed through the corridors, sending shivers through guards and maids alike. Some said she looked more like a walking corpse than a queen, eyes sunken, lips cracked and blackened, her face shriveled into a skull draped in skin. Death did not come gently, but violently. She convulsed, vomited blood, and screamed in torment as her insides tore apart. Priests read prayers without pause, yet even they trembled at the ghastly sight. The punishment of God, they thought in secret, had perhaps fallen upon the woman who had cast hundreds of souls into the flames. On the morning of the 17th of November, 1558, after weeks of torment, Mary I finally breathed her last. She died in loneliness. Her husband, Philip II of Spain, not even bothering to return to see her face one last time. In the palace, there were no sincere tears of mourning, only relief that the nightmare named Bloody Mary had ended. When her body was prepared for burial, it was found that much of her internal organs had rotted away. Her very heart consumed by tumours. Her chamber had to be left open for days to the wind, and her belongings were burned because the stench of death had seeped into every fabric, every grain of wood. A queen of the Renaissance had, in the end, been transformed by death into a horrifying emblem, a body blackened, decayed, dissolving while still alive. The rotting death of Mary I did not merely close a short reign, but became a dark chapter in the history of England. To the public, she was Bloody Mary, the woman who turned the stake into an instrument of rule. To European diplomats, she was proof of the failure of using extremism to impose faith. And in the eyes of posterity, Mary was no longer the princess once praised as the Pearl of England, but a tragic symbol of disintegration, both of body and of spirit. That grotesque death, with a swollen body, decaying flesh, and breath heavy with the stench of death, was seen by many as God's final punishment. A punishment for a queen who had burned nearly 300 people alive, believing she was saving their souls. But looked at more deeply, it was also the tragedy of a woman scarred since childhood by rejection, who lived her life in fear and obsession, and who wielded fire and blood as weapons to compensate for the insecurity in her own soul. When Elizabeth I ascended the throne immediately afterward, England entered a new era. Mary's policies were erased within weeks. While her memory became a warning, absolute power cannot save a person from decay, neither of the body nor of history. Today, when Mary I is remembered, few recall the financial or diplomatic reforms she once attempted. Instead, what endures is the blackened, rotting death of a queen, a death that exposed the fragility of royal power, turning her name into an eternal symbol of cruelty, failure, and the terror of religious fanaticism. In the pale golden light of candles at Westminster Abbey, Mary's body was buried as a monarch. But in the memory of history, she can never rest, for her legacy is not a throne, but the fire and stench of a queen who died in darkness,